You can't drive. Acid is thrown in your face because what you wear is deemed immodest. You can't leave a marriage where you are abused. You are told you don't deserve an education. You don't get to leave the house without permission from your father. And all of this is if you survive birth, as babies of your gender are seen as less valuable. These are all real things that happen to girls and women in the Middle East. In 2015, world leaders agreed to the global goals, 17 goals for a better world by 2030. One of these goals was Goal 5, which aims to empower women and girls and achieve gender equality. In a statement on the Global Goals website, it says that gender bias is undermining our social fabric and devaluing all of us. It is not just a human rights issue. It is a tremendous waste of the world's human potential. By denying women equal rights, we deny half the population a chance to experience life at its fullest. Political, economic and social equality for women will benefit all the world's citizens. Together we can eradicate prejudice and work for equal rights and respect for all. Women have a right to be treated as equal to men, as defined in the very first article of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, which states that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. All humans aren't equal if half of the population is oppressed. Gender inequality is a global issue that affects everybody. We need to face the facts. The majority of men in the Middle East survey believe a woman's place is in the home. In Yemen, women only count as half a witness, and can't even leave the house without their husband's permission. Every year, an estimated 15 million girls under 18 are married worldwide, with little or no say in the matter. 4 out of 5 victims of human trafficking are girls. 1 in 3 women worldwide have experienced either intimate partner violence or non-partner sexual violence in their lifetime. Women currently hold 24, or 4.8% of CEO positions at S&P 500 companies. Female genital mutilation (FGM) affects more than 200 million girls and women alive today in 30 countries. Until recently, women in Saudi Arabia weren't allowed to drive, and are still discouraged from working jobs that would put them in contact with men. On average, 30% of women who have been in a relationship report that they have experienced some form of physical or sexual violence by their partner. At least 250,000 maternal deaths and as many as 1.7 million newborn deaths would be avoided if the need for both family planning and maternal and newborn health services were met. 62 million girls are denied an education all over the world. The Middle East. In the Middle East, due to years of often religion-based conditioning that encourages both men and women to treat women as inferior, a majority of Middle Eastern men support a range of traditional and inequitable attitudes toward women, including a belief that they are not fit to be leaders, should not work outside their home, and that it is more important to educate boys than girls. Although in the Western world there has been significant progress towards a more equitable future, this change has not spread to the Middle East, with it being proposed that at the rate gender equality is progressing it will take 356 years to remedy the economic gap between men and women, and this isn't even taking into account the ideas around women's place in society. Worse still, between their patriarchal societies, increased conservative movements, and lack of political will to move towards gender equity. The Arab world today is seeing a backlash against women's rights and freedoms. What is holding these women back? Ongoing conflict. For many Arab countries, instability is becoming the norm. The region has many severe humanitarian crises, including those in Syria, Palestine and Iran. These conflicts have reduced access to safe services, destroyed systems of social protection and support, increased women's vulnerabilities, and reduced access to safe services. Emergencies are more dangerous for women, as not only are they often deliberately targeted, but the consequences of the conflicts on there can lead to women resorting to risky sources of income, for example trafficking or sex work, simply to survive. According to the 2016 Arab Human Development Report, for young women and women of ethnic minorities the violence is particularly high. Even escaping conflict does not necessarily bring safety. In teams of conflict, gender equality goals quickly disappear from the agenda. And, in a situation all too common around the world, Middle Eastern women generally do not have a seat at the table or a voice in negotiating their nation's peace. Gender-based conflict. Gender-based violence is a worldwide issue, as 1 in 3 women have experienced some form of it in their lifetime, and the Middle East is no exception. In the Arab world, violence against women takes many forms, with intimate partner violence being both the most common and the least reported. As social stigma and pressures from family and their community keep women from reporting it. Economic disempowerment. Only 24% of Arab women are working outside their home, which is one of the lowest female employment rates in the world. As women who do work outside the home are generally relegated to traditionally feminized sectors. Even in rarer cases where women are working in male-dominated fields, traditional gender dynamics remain firmly entrenched. Women are promoted less and have little access to decision-making positions. These women's employment also often ends when they are married. Being married is viewed as a disadvantage in the workplace as well. There are strong economic incentives to change these practices. Globally, gender equality results in higher GDP. More workers means more productivity. But the strongest argument of all is principle. This is a woman's right, and it is the right thing to do. Lack of political participation. The Middle East is significantly behind the rest of the world in terms of women's participation and representation in politics. According to the World Economic Forum, only 9% of the political gender gap is closed. And 4 out of the world's 5 lowest-ranking countries are in this region, including Oman, Lebanon, Kuwait and Qatar. They have closed less than 3% of their political gender gap. Only the United Arab Emirates has seen improvement in terms of increased women parliamentarians. But presence in the political arena does not always equate with power. This lack of political participation is largely due to cultural barriers, a lack of access to economic and financial resources, and the absence of successful active role models in politics. Restrictive family laws. Despite critiques of women's legal status in the Arab region, changing family patterns, and a rapidly growing young female adult population, aspiring to professional lives. Family laws in Arab countries still endorse inequality between spouses and discriminate against women in all aspects of their lives. This is a key obstacle to sustainable development, preventing women's self-determination and contribution to public and productive life, and reforms of this have been slow and uneven across the Arab region. Lack of education. Women in the Middle East have higher illiteracy rates compared to the rest of the world. When women are deprived of education, it affects them and the countries they live in tend to be less economically developed. The power of patriarchy in the Middle East trivializes women and denies them of their fundamental human rights. In comparison to the global average, women's lack of education in the Middle East is a major, consequential concern. In addition, even though women have proved to outperform men, they are still likely to be denied education due to poverty. Poverty plays a crucial role in the lack of women's education. A series of detrimental issues in the Middle East would be resolved if women receive education. Child mortality rates, fertility and population growth rates would slide. When women are educated, they are more inclined to be politically active and be vocal about certain social and economic issues. However, school curricula within the region are designed in a way such that it initially educate girls to become good mothers, nurses or teachers and nothing more. Gender discrimination must be eliminated in primary and secondary schools. With both genders receiving the same education, women need to have greater access to education and should be urged to explore beyond limits. The right to an education is defined as a human right in the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, and the women of the Middle East shouldn't be denied it because of their gender. The story of Malala. Malala Yousafzai was unable to attend school due to the beliefs of the Taliban, who had taken control of her native Pakistan. She still wanted to get an education, so risked her life to get one, and ended up being shot. She survived and is now an international advocate for the education of girls. But for many girls like her, going to school is still downright dangerous. Malala has been quoted as saying, "I tell my story not because it is unique, but because it is not. It is the story of many girls. What if there was another way for these girls to learn?" The idea. Our team of experts believe that education is the key to unlocking women's full potential and in turn reducing gender inequalities. Nelson Mandela famously said that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. This is true. As when women are educated, they are more inclined to be politically active and be vocal about certain social and economic issues, and this is a kind of change the Middle East region desperately needs. Nothing can change if no one will speak up. This need for the education of girls is why we have created Educator, a program which takes recycled iPods and MP3 players, loads them up with educational voice recordings, and delivers them to girls who have dropped out of school. This allows them to still learn while doing the other tasks that their parents may have prioritized over their schooling, or if attending school becomes unsafe for them. We are looking to partner with air transport companies for the transportation of the MP3 players, and we will get in touch with community centers and schools for their distribution to girls who are leaving or have left school. We will also be collaborating with teachers from both within and outside of the region to produce educational material that fits the needs of the girls without infringing on Middle Eastern culture. We can't do this alone. We need your help. Your donations will help us fund the creation of the educational material, the transport and distribution of the MP3 players, and allowing us to reach a wider audience. As well as Mana, you can also help us by spreading the word about our cause, donating your old iPods and MP3 players, recording yourself saying our material aloud, or if you have experience with education you could apply to help create the educational content for the girls and women. Whether you donate your money, your time or your skills, every little thing helps empower women and make them feel worthwhile. Future solutions. We recognize that education alone isn't enough to cause long-lasting change, so on top of the original Educator, we are looking to further the empowerment of women by starting up more initiatives focusing on things like changing men's perspectives on the role of women, economic empowerment to go along with the education, and looking at extending the Educator program to sub-Saharan Africa. Donate today to give young girls the life they deserve.